Howdy howdy, my name's Toast, and welcome back to my channel. Today's video, we're going to be doing something a little bit different, but all I do on this channel is character design, actually, so, no, this is not different in any way, shape, or form, actually. It's just that the technique that I'm going to be using is different than what I would normally do. I recently watched a video of somebody else doing something like this, and I cannot think of the name of the channel for the life of me, so I will make sure to include a little pop-up graphic on the screen so you know who the artist is and what the video I watched was. The basic concept of the video, though, was that they were talking about character design, and they were showing off basically how they did character design. And, you know, what they did was the silhouette method, where you basically block out a black silhouette, and then you fill in the character in that. And, you know, I'm pretty sure that that's something that happens fairly commonly in the character design industry, you know, blocking out several different, like, silhouettes and then choosing a couple and, you know, iterating on them. And I've never done this before myself. I would very much call myself, like, an amateur character designer. I'm not, like, a professional by any means. I kind of only do character designs when it, like, relates to, you know, comics, my stories, you know, creating FCs, D&D, that kind of thing. But it is something that I do want to get better at. I really like character design, and I want to create characters that are visually compelling. And so I figured that this could be a good exercise to try and do because, one, I thought that it would help me create things outside of my own, like, comfort zone, outside of sort of just the ideas that I have in my head of things that I think are cool. You know, being stuck in sort of a puzzle sort of makes you more creative, I think. So I thought that maybe it would, you know, push me out of my boundaries. But then also I thought that perhaps doing this method might also be a quicker way to do it than what I normally do. Because what I normally do is, you know, block out an entire, like, body and then draw the details on that, and, you know, and that can take a while, you know. Not that I'm a slow artist by any means, I'm very quick, actually, but I can always be faster, you know. And I like creating character designs, so I figured just doing this little character, you know, silhouette challenge thing could be a good idea to see how we feel and what sort of ideas that I get from it. So creating the silhouettes was sort of a challenge in itself because I wasn't sure necessarily what to do. I didn't, like, look up any, like, tutorials on how to do this. You know, I didn't watch any videos on, like, how to be a character designer or anything for this. I just sort of dove into it headfirst, as I normally do everything. So I ended up giving my silhouettes, you know, humanoid shapes that I knew that I could turn into some sort of, you know, human character or human-like character. I will say I have done extra silhouettes that I didn't create, but my friends created the silhouettes and then I turned them into characters, and my friends were assholes about it. Let's just put it like that. They gave me the worst shapes imaginable. So if you'd like to see that, let me know, because that's not going to be in this video, but maybe in my next one or something like that we can do that, because my friends are evil. My silhouettes, though, perfectly pleasant humanoid shapes, nice and easy to do. So I did 4 silhouettes in total, and I could have done more because honestly, these didn't really take me very long at all, and I would like to do some more of these sort of things in the future. Maybe, like, with specific ideas in mind of what kind of characters I'm trying to create, because for these, I didn't have any sense of, like, theme or vibe that I was going with, which I honestly think sort of made it more difficult for me to come up with silhouettes and what I wanted them to look like on the inside. I was kind of just going off of vibes. So the first silhouette that I worked on here was this more, you know, blocky sort of vibe. I was imagining, like, just a guy in a trench coat. Nothing super extravagant or, you know, difficult to start with. I wanted to start with something easy. I did give him a little bit of a blocky edge coming out of his shoulder that I was sort of imagining would be a gun. I wasn't too strict on myself about actually staying within the silhouette. If I got an idea that was just sparked from the silhouette, then I allowed myself to make some slight changes to it. Like in the instance of this first silhouette, I wanted his trench coat to sort of be, like, hanging off of his shoulders, instead of him actually wearing it properly, so I did alter the silhouette slightly to have the little sleeves sticking out of the jacket itself, which, one, I think makes the silhouette more interesting in general, and 2, I don't think it was that big of a deal, because I don't think it was that big of a departure from the original silhouette. I think it's more of just, like, something I was inspired by. overall, the design turned out very simple, and I think that that's something you're going to see with all of these, actually, is that they're not the most detailed designs on the planet, and I think that that's okay, because I think in this sort of, I guess we'll call it a first pass that I was doing here, I was honestly going for, like, the main shapes and values. As you can see, I was also, like, working only in black and white, or shades of gray, I should say, which I think also sort of helps. This is something that I struggle with a lot, is I do the design and then I color it in, and then I have problems with values and colors, like, touching, where I don't want them to, and I liked working with this method here, because then it's like, well, I'm only working in black and white, first of all, or grayscale, I should say. So all I have to worry about are what values are touching and making sure that everything's clear and easy to read. And so it just worked out that the values and the shapes are all both clear and easy to read. And I think that, you know, details on stuff, that doesn't necessarily matter at this stage. What matters is just getting the overall vibe of the character. Because you want the character's main design choices to be recognizable, even if you, like, took those details away. Right? The details are there to, like, spruce up the outfit and, you know, make it a little more personal to the character, but, like, the actual design of the character should be able to be recognized without the details. So it was very interesting to work from this sort of simpler design aesthetic. The rest of his outfit, though, aside from the trench coat, really isn't interesting. He really is just in a turtleneck and some black trousers with a hat. I did give him a little fish companion, though, because I thought that would be cute. But there wasn't a lot in terms of creativity that I was really feeling at this moment. This was my first one, so this was sort of like a warm-up hopping into this. But I do overall still enjoy the design, even if it is a little simple and maybe not as creative as the other ones. Oh, I should probably also apologize if the speed paint or time-lapse looks strange to you. It is because I didn't actually record this. I used the time-lapse feature on Clip Studio Paint, so you're probably just going to see colors get, like, filled in because the time-lapse doesn't record your, like, marching ants for your lasso tool. So I apologize if the shapes just popping in looks a little choppy. For our second silhouette, I wanted to go with something that was quite a bit different from our first one, so I did a bigger, like, wider shape, which turned into a very fancy looking woman, sort of, you know, dressed to the nines, very, like, 1920s-esque. And that is something I was quite enjoying about this process, was doing things that I normally wouldn't do. Like, don't get me wrong, I do think the 20s aesthetic and, like, flappers and stuff, all of that's very cool, but it's not something that I naturally gravitate towards. It's not, like, something I'm naturally interested in. But doing this sort of silhouette exercise where I see these shapes and it just, like, reminds me of these things. Like, I saw this shape and I was like, okay, not a lot interesting going on here, so she's probably just wearing, like, a tight dress or something like that, and she had this, like, fuzzy color, so I was like, okay, that seems interesting, and it just reminded me of the 20s. And I like that this sort of thing is kind of pushing me outside of my usual comfort zone. Because I'm very much a person who loves fantasy, so that is typically what I would more design towards. I will say the second character is not necessarily my favorite of all of them, but she's not bad. I think she's interesting, and I think that if I went and iterated on her design more, I could come up with something that sort of fits the energy of, like, the 1920s flapper, plus, you know, the fantasy elements that I like, because that's primarily what I design for. Now, our next two designs, I did go a little more fantasy than the first ones. I mean, I think the first two could technically, you know, if I iterated on them, fall into that as well. But these next two, like, when I was hopping into it, I wanted it to be more fantasy. And so our third design here that we're working on right now, I immediately was like, okay, I want to do something with armor, because that is something that I'm trying currently to get better at. I'm not great at it, but, you know, that's okay. Just got to put more practice into it, and I thought that maybe doing the silhouette challenge could help me. But honestly, like, I think what I do have here is fine, but I think that I just need to do, like, studies of regular armor and figure out the shapes so that I can learn how to alter them and play with them in ways that is interesting. Because at the current moment, I feel like I don't know enough of the basics to be able to alter it in fun ways. That is also sort of in a realistic way. You know, I don't super care if everything is realistic, but I also want it to be like, I don't want it to look like they can't move in their armor, you know? So this guy right here, he is a little fairy. I end up turning the little flaps that I drew in the back there as sort of wings. And if I had more time to iterate on it, I think I would make his armor itself look a little more fairy-like in some aspect. I did very lazily add some details onto his pauldrons to maybe make it look like, you know, acorns. But I was kind of lazy with it because I did not want to draw a full-on acorn. So, you know, it's the idea. The idea of the acorn is there. I also decided to give him a scarf that wasn't even a part of the original silhouette, but I don't know, if his design overall felt boring, so I felt I needed to give him something. I think he's fine. He's definitely my least favorite of all of them. I just think that I would need to iterate on him more to actually make something that I would be happy with. Now, our fourth design. I think the fourth design is my favorite. And I don't really know what I was thinking. It's been a while since I did these, so I don't really know what I was thinking when I was, like, going through the silhouette of this one. But when I made the silhouette, I know for a fact I was thinking, oh yes, a hammerhead shark. For some reason. I'm not quite sure. Probably because the first design was very nautical feeling to me, and so since I liked that one, I kind of wanted to go back to it. And so I have this shark girl here with this sort of, like, big... I decided the shape that I had drawn sort of on the side of her was going to be this, like, big map scroll. And she's in this cute, like, little romper, which is also something that I never would draw in a character. I don't normally draw rompers, but I put her in one. I think it's cute, and she has a little bow tie and a top hat for some reason, even though she's nautical. But maybe the region that she's from just dresses a little fancy. Yeah, I don't really know why I went nautical. I'm really into it recently. Maybe it's just because I really like pirates, you know? Even though I don't necessarily think that she's a pirate. More just a sailor. I actually think she's more like a messenger who just travels on ships from port to port delivering messages. Now, after I'd done these four silhouettes, I did decide to iterate on two of them. I say iterate on two of them. Iteration would probably be more like I spent time doing multiple different, like, passes over them, but I just basically took two of the silhouettes that I liked the most, which was the first one and the fourth one. I also like that they were both sort of giving me nautical energy, so I imagine they could be from the same place. And I decided to just take their designs and clean them up and add in to the sort of extra detail that sort of, like, pizzazzes up the designs. So I originally started out by trying to do, like, some sketches, but girl, when I tell you this was not a sketching day, okay, they look so bad. But I'm not going to worry about that. So what I instead decided to do was just take the silhouettes, I like copied them, and I just had started doing the exact same thing I had been doing with the lasso tool, which I think worked out really well, because I really like the way both of these turned out. For this first guy here, I don't necessarily imagine he's the captain, but I do imagine that he's someone who is, like, higher up on the ship. He sort of gives me, like, first mate vibes or something like that. I don't know. I think he sits in like the watchtower of the mast. I can't think of what it's called right now. He sort of gives me, like, tired-like energy. And since I wanted this sort of nautical theming, I decided to, like, up it on this character, since the only thing that was, like, super there was the fish. So I decided to give this character some sort of, like, rope, like fishnet almost, on his design, because I had added that in to the shark girl's just, like, first pass on her sleeve. So I added that in to his design on the, like, bottom of his coat and also on the cuffs with some tassels, because I like tassels. And I think that it turned out really nice. I really like that sort of design aspect. I added the buttons that go on the coat, as well as gave him some, are they called epaulets? The things that are on the shoulders of a military jacket. I wanted to add those, because that lets us bring the, like, tassels further up onto the design. Most of the design, though, was very simple. I, like, cleaned up some of his hair. I think I changed the hat a little bit. And I gave him, like, tiny bits of interest on, like, the bottom half of his design with some knee pads, as well as I gave him stripes on one half of his leg, because stripes are very, you know, nautical to me. And I think I gave him a little fish belt buckle as well, and that's sort of what I did for him. For our shark girl, I decided to change the design of her little romper a little bit, making it sort of sleeveless with this, like, folded over, like, collar top, which I kind of like. I just wasn't a fan of the way that the sleeves were looking, and I think it's, like, cuter to have these sort of, like, puffed up white sleeves instead. I also decided to give her romper the same stripes, as well as continue some more of the pearls. For her, I didn't really change too much, because I was pretty happy with the level of detail that she had already. I just added in some extra patterns and stuff. I did give her one extra sort of belt that wraps around her chest, so that there was actually a way for the scroll to be attached to her back, and I gave that a little fish buckle as well. And after that, I decided to just like plop on some color, and I went with just some gradient maps, and thank God that you cannot see it here. I spent so long scrolling through different gradient maps to be able to find a good one. It took so long, but it's fine. I got one in the end that's really pretty. It's this like orange and teal. I really like the way that it looks. I did have to go in and alter the color of the shark afterwards because it wasn't like the correct color that I wanted her to be, but overall, I think they turned out really nice. I'm happy with the gradient map that I chose. I'm happy with the details. I think that they're very pretty. And I would love to do this again in the future, maybe with like a stricter theme, so I have some better ideas, maybe doing even more like variations and iterations. I would love to do this for armor as well as for like weapon design, because that's something I'm really bad at. So I'd love to do that. As well as, you know, I have done the silhouette designs that my friend sent me, which I will potentially turn into my next video. Something like that. We'll see. We'll see. I'm thinking about my next video being a cookie video because I'm obsessed with Cookie Run Kingdom right now. So that's how my life has been going. I think that's going to be it for this video though. So thank you so much for watching. I hope that you like the character designs that I have done. And I think I will see you in the next one. So bye!